Hey guys, Stealth here. Today again playing the zombie mode against the 800 infantry units spread over 4 hard AI decks. Now, I'm playing this together with my friend Snakeeye. Snakeeye is chosen to go mainly with air units. He has 2 cards of airplanes and 1 card of helicopters. I myself have gone with a card of American Rifleman coming in Bradleys, 1 card of Longbow Recon Apaches, and 1 card of the MH-60 DAP attack helicopter. Now we also have a ton of supplies, and because we're fighting with 2 players against 4 AIs, we get a double of everything. So this is why in the beginning of the game we're slamming down as many FOBs as we can, because we want to keep everything firing, especially Apaches, which use Hellfire missiles, are of course very, very expensive units to maintain. Now, this game I'm going to do it a bit differently. I'm going to speed it up to the part where it gets interesting and then hide the HUD, so we can have a bit more visual on what exactly it looks like from the ground. So it's going to be more of a cinematics video. Hope you like it. Let's cut to the interesting part. As you can see, jumping some FOBs around. I think he could have deployed 1 more FOB actually. I deployed 4 of mine. Anyway. This is of course a ton of supplies. He has 16,000 per base, which is 48,000. I have even more, so together we should have enough to keep everything firing, you'd think. Let's put this on play. Hide the HUD. And crank up the music a little bit. Actually, not at 9 times. This is better. There we go. Right here, with a couple of Bradleys, I'm keeping this road. I have infantry in these buildings. Of course you cannot see that until they start to fire. But I kept these Bradleys on the road to just have a good angle of fire on whatever vehicle came in. I also have a couple more Bradleys here. Let's see where I put those. Yeah, they're coming up here. And meanwhile, in the distance we have 1 lonely helicopter come up, and that looks like a scout helo. You can see my Bradleys firing, and without a HUD it's not immediately apparent what exactly they're firing at, but considering it's Hellfires, they are firing at vehicles. Let's have a look. That's the first couple of BTRs destroyed. But there's more incoming. There's a lot more incoming. Somebody already mentioned this in the comments, but I don't really do this nearly enough. I just don't show you how beautiful Wargame really is on the ground. I usually play it in a pretty zoomed out mode, but this is of course a bit more interesting. We've got some Zanshis or UBIs, I'm not really sure which they are, running for cover. And this road is just going to be a cemetery. The amount of vehicles we're going to destroy here by the end of the game is completely ridiculous. Love the look of the helicopter firing there in the distance. That's my longbow. You can recognize it by the large radar dish on top of it. There we go. Let's fly with him, see what he can see. Snakeeye called in a couple of A-10s. And because you normally get 2 per deck, and we were fighting 4 AIs with the 2 of us, he had 4 of those bad boys running around. And without a HUD it's hard to pinpoint them, but well, let's see if I can find one. There's one. Really going after the bad guys. Of course these things do require Hellfires, which are being rammed at the base. So they do not take up any FOB supplies, which is of course very nice, because we can then use these things, the FOBs, for resupplying of helicopters. A lot more vehicles rolling in beneath this guy. Not really sure what he was going for, but he was probably trying to make dives with his main gun on a couple of those vehicles. Holy shit. So you wanted the zombie horde, huh? About that. Look at that, that's just really an old vehicle. Chinese by the looks of it. And the AI being brilliant as they are, they just don't seem to know exactly what they have to do. I believe that at this point Snakeeye called in at least one Harrier. Anyway, let's switch back to my section. Wait for those Harriers to arrive. My Bradleys are doing, I don't know, sort of dance. Waiting for more vehicles to come in. And maybe you haven't noticed this yet, but Wargame is so accurate that it shows you how many missiles are left in the racks on this Apache. So, in this situation, it has fired all of its Hellfires. I can confirm this. It fired all of those. But, if there were Hellfires left, you'd see them on those missile racks. On those hardpoints. A couple Bradleys here on the side firing into this town. Apparently they're not worried about being shot at, displaying their sights like that. I mean, the luck of this game. Up close. Everything engaging everything. Let's have a look at how these vehicles are doing, because Snakeeye just did a run on those. And quite a bit of those got destroyed. Now this is where if you zoom in it gets a little weird, because we got a couple of floating vehicles. Those craters are just animations which are beneath them, it seems. So the textures of the map gets changed. And that's when you get weird stuff like this, where you have a vehicle which is seemingly floating in midair. Anyway, let's see where these guys are headed. Thunderbolt coming in for another run. You can hear just constant fire from that Apache out there in the distance. Now this deck I was using had Rifleman in the standard Bradleys, as I mentioned, and when I was creating the deck I didn't think I'd have enough of those vehicles or units, but it turned out that I had more than enough because I wasn't factoring in the fact that I would have double of those. So we can see that this area is also being turned into a graveyard, and it's getting so bad that these vehicles are having a hard time navigating all of these obstacles. A couple of infantry units here. And this is unfortunately where playing without the HUD isn't that good, because you can just not see where they're going. Suddenly they will disappear into a house and the whole squad's gone. Or at least from view, of course they're not dead. Some more infantry units up here. Guess they're all afraid their helm's gonna fall off. Let's have a look at how it's going in the middle of the map, because this is really where most of the action was. You can see that most of these houses have been destroyed from bombing runs, from fire from the Bradleys, fire from my Riflemen, which were in these two blocks of buildings. And the amount of vehicle corpses is really starting to pile up. There's really not an easy route for these things to go through. There's a convoy of 4 more units. I think that was, yeah, that's not a Thunderbolt flying over. And of course it's not a fair game. I mean, taking up a couple of infantry units versus the amount, or versus the type of units we had, such as these DAPs, Snakeeye's Apaches, my Longbows. It's not fair, but it was definitely fun. So if you just want to have a bit of fun with Wargames, you want to play something that's not competitive, not like multiplayer, just pick this. It's very, very fun to set up, very easy to play. It can be exciting from time to time, and especially when you see a ton of those vehicles like we saw earlier over there, it can get really like, oh crap, how are we going to engage that? That's when you engage the Hellfires. That's when you bring in the Thunderbolts, and that's when you bring in the Harriers. Hide the HUD again. But you can really see the difference. Now I can barely see this infantry. Good accuracy, guys. Are you doing like the Freedom Fighter move, shooting up in the air? It's like they were throwing grenades. You don't actually have grenades in these units. A lot of fire coming out of these houses from my Riflemen. Just to show you, I had 30 riflemen in there and 30 riflemen in there, backed up by these Bradleys, which were by now completely spent. They have fired all of their rounds. But you can just see how much units they were up against. And of course, mostly were panicked or worried. And many of them were half dead by the time they got here, because their vehicle got destroyed by the Bradleys. So time to bring in a supply chopper. And this supply chopper is going to send some supplies to my Bradleys, which will then keep firing. Now if you're playing a game mode like this, we are up against a ton of vehicles which don't necessarily need a Hellfire, I would recommend disabling the Hellfire or the tow missile on these units, because they don't need them. And the only thing that's going to happen is that these things are going to chew through your supplies like crazy. They really take a lot of supplies. As you can see, these things aren't completely fully rearmed, but they chewed through 3,700 liters of supplies. A lot of helicopters. These are all scout helicopters, by the way. They're not exactly offensive helicopters. By the way, you could also do this game mode in reverse, where you have a bit of infantry, say a couple of Stinger units, and maybe some Spogs, such as the Jeopard or the French versions, or the Centurion Marksman, if you will, and just give the AI a shitload of helicopters. You could probably create a pretty fun game mode like that as well. Now let's see if we can catch this guy, see where he's going. What the battle looks like from his perspective. Ben had one card of Apaches, sorry, Snakeeye had one card of Apaches, he had one card of Thunderbolts, and he had one card of Harriers. So here you can see his Apaches going to work. This is by now 3 Recon helicopters in the same position, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, you can never have too much Recon in the zone, can you? A couple more vehicles coming up. They just take a missile to the face. And we got some more infantry coming up. Let's see how many there are. I think that's a pretty full health squad. Yeah, that's 40 Zanchis. As you can see, they really had this town mostly under control. But my Riflemen, which were by now almost all elite, really held them off while Ben was suppressing them with his Apaches. CV-wise, it was pretty tight. We weren't really going for CVs because we didn't need the zones. So they captured this zone with a CV there and one there, because multiple AIs will generally start to interfere with each other. We had this zone. We did have this one in the beginning, but then another CV came in, so we lost that one and it got neutral. So most of their supplies, and as you can see, they are still bringing tons of units. With, interestingly, most of these units just in the forest. Really don't get it why, but they just do it. The ideal option, of course, would be to push these infantry here, in their vehicles, then offload them and then come at me in one big wave, using all of these buildings as cover. Now, in case you've never seen this unit before, this is the MH-60 DAP, and that one died. Come on. And that one died as well. Okay. The MH-60 DAP is pretty much the poor man's Apache. It is very good at supporting other units, but where the Apache has rocket pods, this thing has twin miniguns, and I picked that because with that I could probably take out quite a bit of infantry in the open. The problem with that is that they have a little lower range on those chain guns, but they do also come with twin autocannons. So, let's see, where's my longbow? I think I put it back somewhere here. It's probably rearming at this point. Anyway, a standard Apache has one gun on it, and the MH-60 DAP has 2. Look at that, quite a bit more vehicles coming in. You can just see the amount of aircraft that are soaring overhead. Those Thunderbolts are all over the place. lot more vehicles coming in, doing all sorts of crazy high-speed turns. Running with the infantry. Now let me know what you think of this video in the comment. Do you like having a bit more cinematics like this, where you're really feeling you're getting involved in the war? Or do you prefer this strategic overhead view, which I normally provide? Let me know in the comments. We got one Apache going down, or at least he's out of control. Come on, buddy. Hang in there. Probably his tail rotor got hit. Flying over my resupply point. I think that this guy will start to go back to base just to get rearmed and repaired. Especially repaired. We have another Apache firing here, and by the amount of hellfires it's firing, it's probably my longbow. Yep, it's the longbow with the large dish on top of it. Let's see, yeah, now you can see that those hellfire missiles are actually rendered in the game. They are actually on the racks of the Apache, and it still has 2 of these left. Once these fire, you can actually see them disappear. And this is of course the autocannon. I believe that normally in an Apache this nose cone will also turn, because it has a lot of the equipment, a lot of the sensor equipment of the Apache. But of course in this game it doesn't get rendered, because it really doesn't matter. I can just saw, if you really paid attention, you saw those last 2 hellfires go from these racks. And the Apache Longbow is one of the units that is really resource intensive. As you can see here in my FOBs. This FOB got almost completely drained. And of course it's not the first time I rearmed the helicopters at this base, so he might have taken a bit more. I also had some of these CH-53 supply choppers fly back and forth to make sure my infantrymen were staying alive. And I had this Hammett here in the middle, so that the CH-53s would offload in the Hammett, and the Hammett would pass it on to the Rifleman in these buildings, just so that I didn't have to have a CH-53 right there in the action. The Hammett is a little bit easier to hide. Look at that amount of hellfires coming in from these Thunderbolts. Come on, give me a Thunderbolt. Now, without the HUD, it seems a lot more controllable, because you don't see this large blob of units which they got here. Coming in for a gun run. Just look at the turns these things can pull. 150 point turn radius, which is one of the lowest in the game. I don't know of any other unit that has a turn radius this low. Though the SU-25, I'm not sure which version, but the SU-25 comes close to it. If you haven't used the Thunderbolt yet, the gun on these things, you can see it here, protruding from the nose. The gun on these things is excellent. It can take out tanks, it can take out vehicles, infantry, helicopters, airplanes. It's useful against everything, but best used against vehicles and infantry. It's not really meant to kill planes. Again, 4 Apaches overhead, 6 Apaches hanging overhead, providing fire support for my infantry. And of course these guys were actually having a really easy day. There was nothing hard about them. There's nothing hard for them to kill all of these units. Just imagine being somewhere behind the wrecks of one of these vehicles and looking up and you see that. Start running. Like these guys. The animation is always a bit weird. Firing upwards. Yeah, right. You can see the muzzle flashes from these autocannons going off. Of course, a lot of muzzle flashes from these handheld rifles as well. A lot of tracers firing. A couple of Bradleys of mine got destroyed here because I was a bit careless. This is why you should not get too close to these buildings. If you do, they're going to start to fire at you with RPGs. A couple more vehicles got destroyed here. Bit of infantry. And again, if you see something like that, a couple of Bradleys, start running. That is, unless you're a T-90 or a T-80U. Now, of course, maybe this doesn't really highlight the zombie mode element of it, but it's more like an actual war, which I'm showing you here. Although, actual war, I don't have any experience with wars, but this is how I imagine something like that to go down. Probably with a lot less vehicle corpses in the middle of town, though. I think that actual military units would be a bit more clever with the use of those. 4 more Apaches. Sorry, not Apaches. These are my DAPs, my DAPs. These are my support helicopters. As you can see, a bit of Hellfires. They got 5 of those left. Twin autocannons, those are the main guns on the sides. And then the twin chain gun, which is right next to the door of this unit. Let's have a look at the specs. Twin minigun range 1000 versus ground targets, 1000 versus air. Then you got the twin M230, so where the normal Apache has only 1. The normal Apache does have a bit better accuracy. This thing has 60% accuracy. This thing has 25% accuracy, so you won't be as accurate. But you will get twice the amount of ammo for these things, which is very, very nice. And as you can see, they really have their work cut out for them, because there is just an amazing amount of units in front of them. Not really sure what I was ordering this thing to do, but it seems like some sort of victory dance. If you are using helicopters in an urban role, you can do that, but keep in mind that the helicopters by default will descend to about, I don't know, 5 meters above ground. To make sure that they can actually keep firing, because right now they weren't doing anything, you need to click on the unit and press Z or Z on your keyboard, which will make the helicopter go back to its normal altitude. And from there you can actually give them or have them provide fire support. I believe I was doing this pretty soon. See, this is the difference. These are at low altitude and these are at normal altitude. These guys can fire because they can shoot over houses, over any of these industrial buildings. These guys down below here cannot. They cannot do anything at this point unless something happens to be in the building right in front of them. At which point you really don't want to have them out there because they are way too close to the combat. Just look at the amount of units. Look at their amount of units versus the amount of units we had. We had a couple of blue blips here and the rest is just red. Now what was interesting is that later on I found this large combination of units, and I think that the AI just calls in units here, right at the back of the map, and then have them offload their infantry. Here you can see another squad coming out. And this is just how they keep piling up units here. Really not sure why, but make sure you're not the one doing that, because you're not helping anyone if you play like that. Now, as you can see, we lost some units. I believe I lost a couple of Bradleys, I lost a couple of Riflemen, although not too many. And maybe I lost 1 or 2 of these DAPs. I don't think Ben lost any units, so Snakeeye probably had all of his Apaches still in working order. Now let's skip ahead a little bit, because by now we are starting to push them back. We are slowly taking ground, but of course without the HUD you cannot see it. What you can see is this. This is just tons and tons of steel, hit by hellfires, hit by autocannons, by infantry, by laws, by machine gun fire. Everything here was dead or dying. Let's bring the HUD up. We almost scored 10,000 points. Oh yeah, we are actually at 10,000 points. 10,800 at this point. Thunderbolts keep flying overhead. Now I do like the Apache. They are very effective at taking out most ground units. But in this case, I realized that when I was using the MH-60 DAP. Let's see if there's anyone around. Yeah, here he is. These guys are good. They are that good that they're flying 2 choppers at the space of 1. No, really. The best option for a situation like this would probably be the American Little Bird, which comes with grenade launchers. And with that you can really suppress a lot of infantry. They have 15% accuracy, which is very, very bad. But they make up for that with a ton of firepower. They fire the same grenade launcher that the SEALs get and that the vehicles get, such as the LVTP-7A1. And they carry quite a number of rounds for that, so you can really keep suppressing infantry and destroy vehicles with their decent HE power. Now we saw quite a bit of vehicles here again. Let's hide the HUD. You can really see them coming out of this forest. Thunderbolt patrol. To be honest, I think this was not the most effective use of Thunderbolts, because he kept calling them out 4 at the same time. That means that a lot of his hellfires were hitting the same target, which is not effective. It will mean that a hellfire from one Thunderbolt hits the vehicle, and then a Thunderbolt from another, a hellfire from another Thunderbolt hits the vehicle, which is just not effective. So it is something you have to keep in mind. Try to get these guys to fire after each other. Try to call them in sequentially. And if you do it like that, you should be able to get those hellfires to fire as many different targets as you can. But still, I think they're great to look at. Just like you see these pilots having fun, waving their wings around. He's doing an evac run. So at this point we were like, okay, let's just wrap this up. So I was pushing up with Bradleys, getting a couple more Riflemen involved. I started out with 30. All of those 30 survived, although I did merge them with a couple of other groups to have a lot more firepower. Got a couple more Riflemen in here, firing it at these UBIs. Or sorry, UBIs. I keep getting that wrong, sorry guys. Bradleys. And of course these Bradleys could just move up, so long as they stayed far enough away from buildings, which could fire, or not buildings, but infantry, which could fire RPGs. As long as they did that, they were pretty safe. But they do run out of ammo. Even Bradleys do run out of ammo. Because they were firing almost non-stop. And as you can see, a Bradley carries 900 rounds. Come on. Carries 900 rounds, has a rate of fire of 204. So it's going to run out in 4.5 minutes of non-stop firing. So you do have to rearm these things quite a bit if you want to use them. Or if you want to use them in this situation more accurately. Look at all these guys. Spent all of their Hydras. Again, probably not the most effective use. But it is a nice sight. Having 6 Apaches together like that. And of course this is at times 10, so it's not like they're firing actually this fast. But it does give for a pretty fun video. Not really sure what they were firing at here. A couple more vehicles coming in. not a problem for the autocannons and the Apaches. Pushing up with Bradleys, and you can just see just how many units we still had to go through before we could end this game. This again, not a very effective use of vehicles. And this group of Apaches was really pushing them back, although they were, I think by now, completely out of ammo, except for their Hellfires. So they didn't have any autocannon ammo left, so they really had to go back to base now. Got a couple of Bradleys out here. Now this is interesting. Computers do surrender ever since a couple of patches ago. They do this. So sometimes when they really run out of units, I think, or when they don't see any solution, they can just give up. But you don't see this happening very often. It has only happened to me about, I don't know, 5 to 10 times in about 300 games maybe. Apaches again, back from the fobs, or what was to be a makeshift fob, because we were completely out of ammo and out of supplies, as you can see. All of these fobs were spent. So this, we already gathered, was 48,000. Another 48,000, so that's 96,000 units of supplies. Add another 16,000. So that's over 100,000 points of supplies spent on rearming units just to keep firing. And this is how the game ended. So I lost a bit of units, 645 points, probably a bit of Bradleys, infantrymen, maybe 2 helicopters. And Snakeeye only lost, I think, 1 Apache. Maybe? I'm not too sure. And of course the kill list just goes on and on and on, but that is not recorded in this replay. So I hope you liked it. I hope you liked a bit of the cinematics views I did. If you did, consider giving the video a like to let me know, and I will do a bit more of those. If you have any questions about Wargame, please let me know in the comments below. I do like doing guides to help you guys out, so if I have more questions I can build more guides specifically to your needs. So let me know what kind of video you want me to make, and I'll start working on making it for you. If you want to see more of my videos, do remember to subscribe to my channel, hit that subscribe button, and I will keep the videos coming. Thanks for watching, have a good weekend, and see you next video.